Hello, everybody. Today's review is going to be of a show called American Primeval, which is actually from I think early last year. I think it came out in like winter of last year, about January. I can't remember the exact release date, but anyway, I'm sure it probably says on the poster. I just completely forgot to look when I was on IMDb. But anyway, I think it was pretty early last year, and I did review it over on my Instagram, but unfortunately, I believe it was one of the videos that I did that got cut off at the 15-minute mark, so I'm doing a review of it over here on YouTube this year now that I'm just kind of working through my list. So I did give this show a 9 out of 10. It was a phenomenal show. Uh, I think Netflix, like, it's a limited series, and I think Netflix does a much better job at that than the season shows, I find. Not to say that some of their shows that have seasons aren't good, but I feel like a lot of their shows end up getting canceled after one season and then somebody else always picks them up. I probably said that in the past before too about other shows, but yeah, I just feel like there's maybe, yeah, I almost feel like Netflix should just stick to like a limited series maybe and do like a longer running episodic like series like that, like maybe 20 something episodes depending on the show, right? Like I feel like that would just be a better option for them because it seems to work. It seems that when they do shows like this, they put a lot more effort into it, and it just ends up being a better show. That's just my opinion, but everybody's gonna have their everybody's gonna have their different take on this show, right? Like whether it was good or bad. So, again, don't always take my opinion for everything, but I thought it was a phenomenal show. A huge cast of really good actors, especially one that I've grown to love over the years, Taylor Kitsch. He just seems to be phenomenal in everything and really put like his all into his craft, right? So yeah, he's definitely become one of my favorite actors over the years. Ever since, what was it, John Carter, I think was the name of the movie, if I'm remembering that correctly. It's been a while since I've watched that one too, so I might have to go back and watch that eventually. But anyhow, yeah, so we'll go over the cast list now that I've talked for 2 minutes. So Taylor Kitsch, who played Isaac Reed, Betty Gilpin, who played Sarah Rowell, or Holloway, I guess would have been her maiden name, maybe. From what I gathered, anyhow. Uh, Dane DeHaan, who played Jacob Pratt. Sarah Lightfoot Leon, who played Abish Pratt. Derek Hinkey, who played Red Feather. Joe Tippett, who played James Woolsey. Jai Courtney, who played Virgil Cutter. Preston Mota, who played Devin Rowell, who was Sarah's son. Shawnee Poirier, who played Two Moons, who was I'm not was she Shoshone? I can't remember whether she was part of the Shoshone tribe and just was with them, or whether she was part of another tribe and ended up just kind of escaping with Sarah and Devin in the beginning of the show. I I can't quite remember whether she was part of the Shoshone or not, so don't quote me on that. But I believe she might have been. Um, where was I? Oh, Shea Wingham, who played Jim Bridger, who was the owner, I guess the owner slash founder of Fort Bridger, which was a pretty important part in the show for sure. Lucas Neff, who played Captain Edmund Dellinger, who was the leader of obviously the captain, like the leader of the military. Dominic Bogard, who played Cook, who was also part of the Mormon militia. Kim Coates, who played Brigham Young, who was the governor, but also part of the Mormon religion as well. So yeah, and I think he had a lot. Obviously, being governor, he had more power than anybody else over a lot of the land, right? And then he was trying to buy the land, or buy Fort Bridger from Mr. Bridger for, I don't know, pretty much the entire season, I would say. Then we had Alex Brieux, who played Wild Bill Hickman, and then Andrew P. Logan, who played Lucas, who was Virgil's younger brother, from what I gathered. Anyway, because he kept calling him little brother, so I'm assuming it was actually his little brother. So yeah, we start out in the Utah Territory in 1857. The United States Army, the Mormon militia, and the United States Army, the Mormon militia, Native Americans, and pioneers are all locked in a brutal war for survival. And then I guess based on like if you're not like on somebody's side, if you're kind of caught in the middle, like caught in the bloody crossfire, are every man, woman, and child who dare to enter this. So basically, like, if you're not picking a side, you're kind of like neutral or just traveling. Yeah, you're bound to probably end up dead or in caught in the middle of a battle, right? Which is unfortunate because you're not even trying to be in the war, but if you're in that part of the land, I guess you're probably going to end up in a battle at some point for your life. So unfortunate, but we start out in episode 1 with a woman and her son traveling to Fort Bridger to meet with Jim Beckworth. Now, when they get to Fort Bridger in southwest Wyoming, it seems that Mr. Beckworth has already left for Crook Springs, which is what their location was supposed to be. Now, it is the middle of winter, I guess, or at least it is winter time, so I guess the travel is much more treacherous than it normally would be, right? So I guess he took off because he wanted to try to make it there before the weather got any worse and wasn't going to wait around for them to show up, and I guess they were already late due to their guide not showing up in time, and the train being there early or whatever, and then their guide not showing up on time. So yeah, they were already running behind schedule, and I guess he didn't want to wait around. Now their new guide ends up getting shot, even though he said that he could take them all the way to he could take them all the way to Crook Springs. He ends up getting shot in an altercation with somebody else in the town, and of course you can kind of see that Fort Bridger is just basically like a mix of just everybody. So you don't really know like criminals. You've got like the miners. The Native Americans are there. So yeah, it's just like everybody is welcome there, but obviously there's going to be some tension between certain groups, right? It just happens. Especially when there's obviously you don't really know who is there all the time, maybe, and when there's a war going on outside of the walls of Fort Bridger, there's probably going to be some tension between people, right? It just is bound to happen. But Mr. Bridger kind of tries to keep to himself for most of the show, from what I gathered anyway, right? Like he welcomes everybody's business, but also tries to just keep to himself and not really cause any chaos if he doesn't have to, right? So where was I? So Mr. Bridger does eventually say that he is able to take them to the one man that he thinks will probably get them there safely. Obviously with their one guy being shot in the middle of the town, right? So now Isaac, or Mr. Reed, ends up turning them away, right? Like he doesn't want anything to do with it. He says he has no business in Crook Springs, and he just wants to be by himself and kind of stay out of any chaos that he doesn't necessarily need in his life, right? So eventually Sarah and Devin, or Mrs. Rowell, I guess at this point as we knew her, end up asking the Mormons who had arrived in town if they could just accompany her at least, or she could be part of their company to travel with, right? So at least she would be getting somewhat closer to her goal or her location, and then eventually when she got close enough, she'd just eventually part ways, right? Because I'm not exactly sure where the Mormons were planning on going, but I don't think they were... I can't remember if they were going to Crook Springs too, or whether they were traveling further than that, and she was just gonna, travel to Crook Springs at least that far with them, and then they could go on their own way, right? And she is trying to get to Crook Springs so that she can give Devin over to his father. I'm not really sure why. I think probably because she knows that people are after her, right? Due to what we find out that she did in Philadelphia a little bit later on. Actually, I guess we're going to find out right now. So yeah, a man looking for Sarah Holloway, who has killed someone in Philadelphia, and his family is owed money, I guess. So I believe, obviously she has a bounty on her, right? Like dead or alive, but she'd be worth much more alive, right? Now, Mr. Bridger claims to not have seen her, even though she was just there, I think, probably about a day before he ended up showing up. We find out that this guy is a bounty hunter, actually, a little bit later on. Um, but before that, the Mormon militia show up to warn a traveling party that they must have a permit to travel on these lands. Now, I can't remember. I believe they might have been part of the same group as the. Oh yeah, I guess it was like two groups kind of combined, like this other traveling group and the Mormons, right? And then they end up all getting attacked, and of course they try to blame the Shoshone people, but that's not who it is. They try to blame the Shoshone people in Red Feather because he's kind of like disassociated from the rest of the tribe that he's with, so they try to blame him um, throughout the show, like the Mormon militia, even though it was them with some of, like, I'm not sure who they were with that they attacked, but I don't think there was anybody even involved that was of native descent. Now, I can't quite remember whether they're, now obviously they had some people with them who had like gone on into the Mormon religion, I suppose, that were native to the land. So yeah, I guess they did have some Native Americans with them as well. But yeah, it was just very yeah, it was just a very strange way to try to go about it, to blame somebody else that wasn't even close to that location at the time. Um, so yeah, it was quite a sudden attack, like in broad daylight too. So it was hard to tell amongst like all of the chaos, obviously, like what was happening. Now, yeah, it was just a very big mess of stuff. And then it looked like Jacob had actually died because he almost got scalped in the middle of the battle, but somehow he survived and actually wakes up at the very end of the episode, which is crazy. Um, but one of the group of men had overheard the conversation between the bounty hunter and Mr. Bridger, and they do tell the bounty hunter that they can take him right to Mrs. Holloway. Now, of course, they know how much she's worth alive now, so when they take the bounty hunter outside, they end up just killing him, and now they're taking the bounty for themselves, right? So they've become essentially, as far as I was concerned, they'd become like the new bounty hunters, right? Because now they're going to collect all of the gold. Now I'm not sure, or I guess all of the money that she would be worth. Now I can't imagine when they get there that the people that were setting the ransom for her probably would be too happy to see somebody else there, and maybe that would have caused a little bit of more chaos, but they didn't make it. Let's just say that much. So yeah, they end up just taking the bounty for themselves. So in episode 2, after surviving the attack, Jacob begins searching for his wife. Now, obviously, he's still like a little disoriented and right in the middle of the battle zone still, and probably not the smartest thing to be yelling when you don't still know if there's anybody there that could kill you. But I think he's a little bit out of it, right? And now at this point, Mr. Reed is adamant that they go back to Bridger instead of traveling to Crook Springs. So this was obviously after the attack, and he had come in to save them, right? So he says there's no way they're going to travel on. They need to turn around and go back. Like that would be the smart play in his book anyway. Now, obviously, Sarah doesn't want any part of that, right? She wants to keep traveling on forward because she knows if she goes back, she's probably going to end up dead, and so will Devin, right? Um, so where was I there? So then when they get to, I can't remember, they get to some sort of river and they can't cross, obviously. So uh, Mr. Bridger, or oh my God, Mr. Reed decides to go off on his own and try to find a path. And then I think was it the bounty hunters that ended up finding them, I think? Um, yeah, I think it was actually the bounty hunters that ended up finding them at the river, so they have to fend off them or get away from them. And then at the same time, uh, once uh, once Mr. Reed ends up finding a path, he ends up getting attacked himself. So yeah, it's just a huge mess of like battles. And then yeah, because they're separated, obviously they have to try to fend for themselves, right? Which was crazy. And then they have to try to find their way back to one another, which is even crazier. So then, for the first time after this, we meet Brigham Young, who is the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That is a mouthful. And he is the governor of Utah. Um, so Brigham gets word of the confrontation with the traveling party, and of course now he pretty much figures that they're going to have to cover it up somehow. Like they don't want any of this evidence coming back on them, right? So now they're going to have to find a way to cover it up. So the Latter-day Saints tell Mr. Bridger that the military's purpose is to come in after them. Of course, Mr. Bridger doesn't really care that much. Like he's not really, he's like, okay, whatever, like not my problem sort of thing, right? The military end up questioning Jacob, asking him if he is able to identify the men that attacked the traveling party. And of course, because they were wearing masks, and I think Jacob, probably trying to protect his wife for the most part, doesn't really remember much of anything, but he does notice like little things, obviously, like the pocket watch later on in the show, and I think he does recognize. Oh no, I guess that was Abish actually that recognized Mr. Woolsey a little later on. Yeah. So we go to the Navajo Legion with the Mormon militia, and James Woolsey discovers Jacob survived the attack, and now they are helping him find his wife, Abish. So it's kind of a mess for him, right? Because he thinks that he killed everybody, or, you know, when he was there having the conversation with the other people, he did tell them that when they were done with the people or whatever, to kill them anyway. So yeah, it was just a mess for him, right? So at this point, they'd gone pretty far, and I think they had lost their first set of horses, or they were trying to get their first set of horses. Actually, I think they had lost their horses, right? Yeah, they had lost their horses. So they were trying to buy new ones, and of course, Sarah doesn't trust him at all, so she always has to get somewhat involved, and then they recognize her from, I guess, people writing in a few days earlier to ask where this girl might be, and they see the young boy, and then, of course, chaos breaks out again. It's just a huge mess. Like, everything, like, if she didn't get involved in a lot of these situations, it probably would have been much easier for them to travel, but, yeah. I think he got shot in that altercation too, didn't he? And then a little later on, yeah, he does. Yeah, yeah, because he did get shot in that altercation. I remember now. Now, and then at the same time, I believe Jacob, when they come across, I can't remember what tribe it was, but he notices a piece of his wife's clothing on one of the children, and like tears it away from them. And of course, then they threaten to kill the Mormon militia. So Mr. Woolsey just tells Jacob to get back on his horse, and they just turn around and ride away because they don't want that confrontation. Obviously, they don't have the men or the firepower, obviously, probably to take on everybody there. So they just turn around and drive away. And then, yeah, it wasn't too long after that Mr. Reed ends up falling off his horse after being shot, but is picked up by a tribe. Actually, he's picked up by the Shoshone at that point, and they end up nursing him back to health. And it turns out that they actually know him, so they had treated Sarah and Devin pretty well. And I can't remember, yeah, I guess Two Moons would have been with him at that point too, so they're all being treated pretty well. Now the military ends up showing up to ask about the missing woman, but turn away when they are able to get no information from Mr. Reed or the Shoshone. So then we go to episode 3, where the bounty hunters show up at the Mormon militia camp, telling them the woman and child are still alive. So they think that, at this point, they think that everybody else is dead, right? They didn't realize that so many people had survived this attack that they had orchestrated, right? So now they're getting more and more nervous as the pressure kind of builds on them to create some sort of cover-up story and obviously tie all their loose ends, right? Like they've got a lot of ground to cover at this point for that to even happen. So Sarah, Mr. Reed, Devin, and Two Moons are led into a trap after Sarah decides to return a child. So that scene was pretty interesting, actually. So this child just shows up out of nowhere, And of course, I was thinking, this just screams trap to me. Like, this is going to be a setup. And of course, when they return the child, all of a sudden they're surrounded by a huge group of people with guns. And then they're basically held captive for, I think, I don't know, like a couple of days, I guess, until finally uh, Two Moons ends up showing up and creates enough of a distraction for Sarah to grab a gun and kill all of them. Which, I mean, she completely went off the rails because what was happening to her in that camp was beyond sick. But yeah, I'll let you just watch the show for that because, yeah, there's some stuff in there that happens that isn't great for Sarah. So I can see why she went a little haywire, obviously. So then the governor comes to Mr. Bridger asking for his fort before before the military can take it over. So obviously the Mormons are feeling quite a bit of pressure from the military at this point because they know if they don't take out the military or try to stop the military at any cause, or yeah, yeah, that's right, at any cause, they're going to be probably wiped off the face of the earth, right? Because I think the military has pretty much at this point kind of figured out that the Mormons were somehow involved in the attack on that traveling party, right? So yeah, like I said, Two Moons ends up coming back to save Sarah, Mr. Reed, and Devin. Yeah, giving Sarah enough time there to kill all their captors. Now the military again questions the Mormon militia, and Mr. Woolsey points them in the direction of the Wolf Clan and Red Feather, which is again another diversion. But yeah, the military kind of knows, but they can't just go off. They can't just go based off of just what they think, right? They have to have some sort of proof that the Mormon militia was somewhat involved. Right now, James Woolsey is a very scary character. Like, he's just throughout the show, he's just a very kind of like intimidating force, and I don't even think he's trying to be, but he just comes across as like a very scary individual. And obviously it was meant to be played that way, right? Like, he's supposed to be like an intimidating force, but he plays it so well that yeah, I have to give kudos to the actor, right? So where was I then? So yeah, it was Jacob that recognizes one of the pocket watch that one of the Mormon militia men is wearing, and that was oh my god, which one was that? It was Cook that was wearing the watch. So yeah, he recognizes that right away, and obviously you can tell that he's not very happy and knows that obviously the Mormon militia was somewhat involved now, right? So he really wants his revenge on everybody at this point. So then I believe, yeah, so then we go to episode 4, where Mr. Bridger refuses to sell his pigs to the Mormons and tells them that the price of his fort has gone up now. Which, I mean, so he's really battling tooth and nail to make sure that he doesn't give up this fort. He doesn't want to give it up to the Mormons. I don't think he even wants to probably give it up to the military. He seems to be growing quite fond of where he is, and I think he just wants like his own established land, because then it kind of divides everything, right? Like, his fort is kind of like the middle ground for everything to kind of keep the peace a little bit. I think that's what he wants. So Jacob and the rest of the group find where Sarah, Mr. Reed, Devin, and Two Moons were captors a few days ago. So this is like the bounty hunters again. So yeah, they're kind of getting very close to the path of where all of them are, right? The bounty hunters are hot on their trail. So Devin reveals to Mr. Reed that they had actually killed somebody. I guess, obviously, he's not talking about what had happened. He's talking about what was before. So now Mr. Reed kind of knows that there was something going on, clearly, and they were trying to escape it. But at this point, he doesn't care. He's kind of grown fond of both of them, so he's definitely willing to protect them at this point, because they've kind of become like his new family, almost, in a sense. And then we go to Red Feather finding the scouts the military sent, and vows to take the fight to them. So now he's saying that he's going to take the fight to the military instead of them always bringing the fight to him. And he does actually go back to the rest of the Shoshone people, but they don't seem to want him there. And then we discovered that the name given to Mr. Reed by the Shoshone means spotted hawk. Now, I wish I could have found the actual name when I looked it up, but it just gave me the name that it was translated to, unfortunately, on Google. Because, yeah, I wanted to know the spelling for the other name, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. His name in English was Spotted Hawk. I couldn't tell you what it was in the Shoshone language, but yeah, I guess you can watch the show and find out for yourself. So Jacob then kills Cook when they go down to the river, after Cook was like begging him that they should probably turn back because he doesn't see this ending well. But then after he kills him, he goes back to the bounty hunters, and they kind of just part ways with him because they're like, okay, well, if you've killed this person for this, I can't have you killing me in the middle of the night because you think I've stolen your wife's like belongings, right? Sort of thing. Or anybody's belongings from the Mormon people. Like, he just doesn't want that. So they part ways and leave him all by himself. And then he kind of descends into madness over the next couple episodes. So where was I? Red Feather promises not to bring war if the military believe Abish's words about who attacked her people. So she is going to go to the military and tell them that it was actually the Mormon militia, and she can identify them. Now, Red Feather leaves Abish with the military after she gets there because he believes that that's probably the safest place for her, just because he believes that probably the Mormon militia is going to come after them, right, at some point, or he's going to take the war to them eventually, sort of thing. So yeah, eventually Abish does go back to the Shoshone, but Sarah then admits to being abused by the man in Philadelphia, but I guess she was kind of just coping with it in her own way. But then when he attacked Devin, this is what she tells Mr. Reed. When he attacked Devin, that was enough, and she ended up killing him for it, right? Which makes sense, because I guess she was staying because she could handle it herself. But yeah, obviously when you attack a child, it becomes a whole different ballgame, right? So this is when the military shows up with Abish to the Mormon militia camp, and she recognizes Mr. Woolsey right away, and you can kind of tell, obviously, that the military looks at her a little bit, and especially the captain looks at her too, and kind of realizes that she's a little bit, scared. She has a scared look on her face when she sees Mr. Woolsey, so he kind of has a idea now of who was there, right? And he even asks her when they're turning around and leaving, because Wild Bill kind of says, we're happy to see you. You can come stay with us. And then he goes, no, she's going to come back with us, because he can tell there's something a little bit off, right? So then after this, Abish does decide to flee, I guess before war breaks out between the military and the Mormon militia, because that's probably inevitably where this is going to be going. Now, she does go back to the Shoshone. I'm not really sure why she chose that. I think I probably would have just eventually chosen to probably travel on my own, but I guess she kind of felt safer with the Shoshone, right? Like, they had kind of brought her in and made her like one of their own, sort of thing. So yeah, I can understand why she wanted to go back with them. So then we go to episode 5, where Mr. Woolsey is now being punished for his mistake, and the military forces grow to wipe out the Mormons. So I guess the military has called in like reinforcements, basically, to come in and take out all of the Mormon militia. Now, I'm not sure whether they were going to stop there, or whether they were just they were going to kill like all of the Mormon people. That's basically what it sounded like. So I think one of the other military men actually sells out the rest of the military, and in that battle he ends up getting shot himself. Like, I don't know why he was trusting the Mormon militia to leave him alive, but yeah, they end up shooting him too in the process. So yeah, it was kind of silly for him to switch sides there, but I guess maybe he thought they would let him go if he was able to sell out the rest of his military buddies. It kind of seems crazy to me that he would even want to do that. But yeah, he was the sergeant. So the sergeant betrayed the military and gets killed anyway by the Mormon militia. After all of that, um, yeah, just seems absolutely crazy to me. So where are we here? So I believe, yeah. So this is again. I think this is the second attempt that the governor makes to buy the land, and Mr. Bridger turns him away once again, telling him the land is not for sale at this point. So yeah, he's kind of put his foot down and said, this is where we're going to stay. There's nothing you do can make me leave at this point. And then, after seeing what the Mormon militia did to the military, Abish offers to give herself up, but the Shoshone refuse and say they will fight, that Abish is now part of them. Basically because she could have stayed away, right, and probably stayed with the military, but yeah, obviously she made the right choice by leaving when she did, because the Mormon militia come at night and end up taking out all the military forces before the reinforcements can even get there. So I don't think they even end up showing up, do they? Because I don't know how long it would have taken for that note to get back to Fort Bridger, and then from Fort Bridger to wherever they needed to go to get the military reinforcements. So yeah, I guess basically at that point it was kind of like the Mormon militia had kind of made themselves a little bit free of any or what's the word, free of any danger, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. So the bounty hunters do end up finally catching up with Sarah, Mr. Reed, Devin, and Two Moons, and they take Sarah, amidst all the chaos, obviously. Now, I'm not really sure. I can't remember how many. I think it might have been only like one or two that he was able to take out, right? The one in the house and the one outside, I do believe, because he does ask, like, where is Sarah? And he just says they've taken her, and then he ends up shooting him. And that leads us into episode 6, where Sarah tries to make a deal with the bounty hunters, mainly just her main deal that she's trying to make is with Virgil, but he doesn't want any part of it. He kind of tells her that it doesn't really matter what she can pay him. He just wants the bounty, because that's at least guaranteed, right? Like, he knows that's a guaranteed pay. So yeah, he's not really interested in what she's offering. So he just says, if you try to run, I will shoot you in the face. Like, I will bring you in dead if I have to, sort of thing. Sorry, what was I? Oh yeah. So the governor finally makes Mr. Bridger an offer he can't refuse, and then tells him he plans to burn it down after Mr. Bridger signs Fort Bridger away. So yeah, I don't know why he finally said, I guess he just kind of caved because he was sick of the governor constantly coming back, because the governor wasn't going to take no for an answer. And basically the governor said, if I have to come back here again after making this offer, it's not going to be a peaceful offer. And I guess Mr. Bridger probably doesn't have the firepower, even with everybody there kind of a little bit more on his side. He knows that, obviously the Mormon militia is much stronger than his forces will be, right? Like, it's just all different walks of people in Fort Bridger, so he doesn't really want, like, a whole war probably going on there, right? So he caves eventually and sells it, but it is what it is. I think he just probably wanted to move on and, find his own peaceful life and maybe his own little piece of land that he could just live the rest of his life out on, right? So where was I? Oh yeah, the Mormon militia tracked down Jacob all by himself. They tell him that they plan to avenge the death of his wife. I'm not sure how they convinced him of that his wife was actually dead, but we know that she's still alive. And I guess basically Woolsey says to Wild Bill, what if he sees his wife still alive? And he says, just put him on the front lines and hope that he ends up killing her in the process. Like, what a messed up thing to do to the guy after he's been through that much, and you're supposed to be like one of his people, but also you attacked them. So I guess, yeah, you're just basically hoping that the loose ends just kind of tie themselves, or take care of themselves, I guess, basically at this point, right? And then nothing can be pinned back on you. Kind of crazy. Um, so Mr. Reed is able to track down the bounty hunters and kills all of them except for Virgil's brother, Lucas. So Lucas is able to, I guess, follow them for quite some time without Mr. Reed even noticing. So when, unfortunately, though, for the Mormon militia, uh, the Shoshone are prepared for the arrival of them, and when they get there, obviously the chaos breaks out, and Jacob does end up shooting Abish, which is unfortunate because she was painted up like one of the Shoshone as well, like for war, and I don't think he even realized what he had done until he shot her and realized, like, when he was looking at her face to face, he was like, "Oh my God, I just shot my wife, and I've been looking for her for all this time, and then I just ended up killing her by accident." Which is what they wanted, but obviously not what he wanted, and then he ends up taking his own life because of it. But the Mormons, after this, like after all of that, Wild Bill shows up to let the governor know that everything's gone according to plan, and they only have one last thing to do, and that is to burn down Fort Bridger. And so they continue on with that plan. And Mr. Bridger ends up going off on his own way, and obviously he tells, everybody that whatever is in the bar is theirs now, it's free. So they all kind of go off on their own way, and Fort Bridger just ends up burning to the ground. Which obviously is going to make the Mormons stronger. Now, quite a few of them obviously died in that battle with the Shoshone on both sides, clearly. A lot of the bigger characters ended up dying in the very last episode, which is crazy. But Mr. Reed ends up parting ways with Sarah, Devon, and Two Moons, only to discover not that far down the trail that they were still being followed. So Lucas ends up coming out of the forest, and he looks extremely creepy in that scene, like just face down, like hair in his face sort of thing. And obviously, his brother was just killed in front of him, basically, so he's going to be quite upset. He tells Sarah to get on the horse, and that he's going to take her in for this bounty, right? And he says that he will shoot the kids if he has to. So he's gone off the rails, and then all of a sudden he gets shot, and you can see Mr. Reed riding in one last time to try to save them, and unfortunately he gets shot twice and then ends up succumbing to his injuries. So they have to give him a funeral at the very end of the show, and that was just a very sad moment because all of that, and just having Sarah like basically reveal her love for him, right, was a pretty crazy thing. And then eventually, after all of that, she agrees with Devon to go to California anyway. So yeah, it was kind of very sad ending for Isaac Reed, obviously, because all he wanted to do was go back to where he started with them and just be on his own. Like, you could tell, even though he cared for them greatly, he just wanted to go back and, I think probably mourn his wife and kid properly because he hadn't really had a chance to do that yet. I thought I heard something in the background, but anyway, yeah. What else can I say about this show? The action in it was great. A lot of standout characters. Obviously, I would say the two that really stood out to me. Now, Taylor Kitsch did a fantastic job of his character, but Dane DeHaan's character stood out, and Joe Tippett, who played James Woolsey, really stood out in this show, for sure. Now, there was obviously some other big names, right? Like Kim Coates, and who else? That was like a really big name. Oh my God, and Shea Wingham, who played Jim Bridger. He's a pretty big name, pretty well-known name too. So yeah, there was lots of, definitely some, and obviously Jai Courtney, like having him in this show, like having the bigger actors in this show, I think really pushed it to a whole new level. And just having it as a limited series just works better. I think that they didn't like try to drag it out like 2 or 3 seasons because there probably wasn't enough to tell. Maybe, I guess, but yeah, I feel like it just works so much better as a limited series for sure. But yeah, that's it for this review, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.